welcome back, Bio30. We are kicking off with our third unit of the course where we're going to start with the circulatory system. If you haven't tried to draw out a heart before jumping into this, it's a good practice activity just to see what you might already know and perhaps maybe learn what or see where there's room for improvement as well. When we start off with the circulatory system, we're going to try understanding what the function of that circulatory system is to start. And that's basically a transport system. We need to be able to move things in our body from one part to another. So things like our gases, where do we get gases? Well, breathing in, for example, oxygen comes in, carbon dioxide comes out. But these are gases. They have to be in our body, into our cells for cellular respiration, and in our cells for waste products. So, how do we get those in there to start? Well, our circulatory system is going to help us move these things from place to place. We're also going to use our circulatory system to help us with internal temperature, help us transport various chemicals, connect with the endocrine system a little bit as well. With temperature, we talked about that in the past. We talked about vasoconstriction and dilation. We'll get into that again today. We also are interested in protecting our body. So, yes, when you get injured, you will bleed, but you'll notice after a couple of minutes, maybe even a couple of seconds, your body stops bleeding because it has the ability to protect you from bleeding out. So, we've got these specialized cells or fragments of cells that are going to help us do that in our circulatory system as well. So, in the system, there are three major points. We've got the heart, which is the big one. That's right in the middle of your chest. It's going to pump blood throughout the rest of your body. Then we've got the blood vessels. There's three different kinds of blood vessels that we're interested in. Two of those, the arteries and veins, have different types of arteries and veins as well. So we'll talk about those. And then the stuff that goes in the blood vessels, that is our blood. Our blood has a whole whack ton of things in it, and it's ideal for us to know how the blood functions, what it does, what's in it, how that can help us as well. So we're going to look at that as well. To start off, we should understand that there are different kinds of circulatory systems. We've got what's called an open circulatory system. Quite often in smaller organisms, that's where the blood or the circulatory system is in contact with all organs at the same time. A couple of examples would be things like insects, so like a grasshopper, for instance, all of its organs are sitting in a pool of its circulatory system. So everything is accessible to the organism at the same time. The example I use in class is if we were all in the exact same swimming pool at the same time, it's very easy for us to talk to each other, to give someone a shout. But the issue is, as soon as somebody pees in that pool, we're all a part of that, which is kind of icky, right? On the other hand, our body utilizes what's called a closed circulatory system. This is where the blood is kept within the vessels themselves. That's going to prevent the blood from pooling in our bodies. So it's kind of harder. It's if we all had our own private swimming pools, and if we wanted to contact each other, we'd have to go to each other's swimming pools. But if there is an issue anywhere in our body, it's not going to affect the other organs, not immediately at least. So this is common in larger organisms, but a couple of small ones as well. Things like earthworms will have a closed circulatory system. They have a network of blood vessels that run throughout their body also. Now, that gets us into the human heart. We should be recognizing every single part of the heart as well. We should understand the way that the heart is going to work. So we've got our vena cavas, one from the body, one from the upper part of our body as well. That is going to empty deoxygenated blood into our right atrium up at the top here. The right atrium is going to pump past the tricuspid into the right ventricle. The right ventricle is going to go past the right semilunar valve or the pulmonary semilunar valve into the pulmonary arteries. Pulmonary arteries are going to pump the blood, or they're going to help the blood flow towards the lungs, where the lungs are going to reoxygenate our blood and send them back through the pulmonary veins on either side of our heart, which dumps them into the left atrium. The left atrium goes through the bicuspid into the left ventricle. Left ventricle goes through the left semilunar valve or the aortic semilunar valve into the aorta, which is going to pump blood all throughout our body, either to our upper limbs or into the lower portions of our body also. And so our heart has a massive, massive role to play in our circulatory system. I'd regard it as honestly one of the most impressive parts of our body. It is a muscle, so it is constantly contracting. It is constantly growing like the rest of your muscles, but it's got a special type of muscle tissue called cardiac muscle tissue, as opposed to the skeletal muscle tissue that you have in, say, your biceps or your pecs or your glutes, for instance. With the human heart, as mentioned, they've got various chambers. We got the atria at the top, the ventricles at the bottom, separated by a septum down the middle. Then we've got the tubes that connect to the heart. The big ones are the vena cava and the aorta. Vena cava is the largest vein, aorta is the largest artery. Pulmonary veins and arteries also to connect our heart to our lungs. And then we've got the tubes inside of our hearts connecting each other as well. Lastly, we've got these valves that control the flow of blood through the heart that prevents any of the blood from going backwards in the wrong direction. We've got the tricuspid on the right hand side. That's one of our atrioventricular valves. We have your bicuspid on the left, also known as a mitral, or it could be known as just the atrioventricular valve. In the center of our heart, we've got the semilunar valves. The pulmonary semilunar valve connects you to the pulmonary circuit. The aortic semilunar valve connects you to the aorta. And if we take a cross section from the above, you can see what those semilunar valves and what those atrioventricular valves look like. So these are atrioventricular valves. You can see on the right side, we have a tricuspid, tri for three lobes, bicuspid on the left side. And these are semilunar valves up at the front and down the middle of our heart also. And this is just a cross section. All we've done is we've taken a slice of the heart from a different place than we're used to so we can see the valves a little bit better. That brings us into the blood vessels. We're actually going to pause on this video here before we get into blood vessels. This is just to line up with the way that we've covered material in the class. But we'll pick up on the next video with the blood vessels directly. So I will see you in that one, and we'll catch you in just a minute.